Hello and welcome back for another Torah Tuesday. We are still in the genealogy in Exodus chapter 6, and I'm going to show you some interesting things that I've discovered as I slowed down and mapped out this genealogy to try to see why is it here and what clues can we see as far as the author's purposes or the themes of the book that come through. If you haven't watched last week's video, I encourage you to pause this and go back and watch that first because it sets us up for today's video. Last week we talked about several clues in this genealogy that point to the author's purpose, and we noticed that there's only one string of names that goes 6 generations. We also noticed that in that string of 6 names is where we get the names of the wives of each man, as well as the age of each man when he died, for those who have already died. So those are some clues that tell us that there's something different about this string of 6 names compared to everybody else. This is not an exhaustive genealogy. It doesn't give us all the names. It doesn't give us all the generations of all the branches. So that tells us something about what matters to the author. You can see this if you kind of lay out the text with each section on a new line. So starting in verse 14, we get the sons of Reuben, the sons of Simeon. And then we have a grammatical break with verse 16. These are the names of the sons of Levi by their generations. So there's an interruption to the pattern that introduces Levi, and then Levi is the focus for the rest of the genealogy. But this happens at lower levels as well. So under Levi, we get the sons of Gershon, the sons of Kohath, the sons of Merari, nice pattern. And then in verse 20, we have another break. Now Amram took Jochebed, or Yocheved, his aunt, as his wife, and she bore him Aaron and Moses. So here's another break in the structure, and here the break is highlighting the parents of Moses and Aaron, whose names we learned for the first time. Now back in chapter 2, when we heard the origin stories of Moses, we didn't get the name of either of his parents. It was just a son of Levi and a daughter of Levi who become his parents. So this is an interesting thing to hold side by side. Back there in chapter 2, I suggested that the narrator is withholding the names on purpose. It's a way of whispering or showing they're trying to fly under the radar so that Pharaoh does not discover them and take away their child. Another possible way to explain it, that others have explained it, is that these texts are from different sources, and one source knew the names and the other source didn't. But I find it more compelling to see that there's narrative intentionality. Whoever compiled the final version of the book of Exodus left the names out of chapter 2 and put them in chapter 6. So chapter 6 tells me the narrator knows the names of these parents. And that suggests to me that the absence of the names in chapter 2 is literarily significant. It's helping with the theme of that chapter. Now, you might have noticed that Amram is marrying his aunt or his aunt, depending on where you're from. This is slightly problematic in that Leviticus prohibits sexual relations with the father's sister. That's in Leviticus 18:12 and 20 verse 19. But his marriage to his aunt is not presented here as problematic. So that's interesting. I don't have a solution for it, other than some have suggested that the laws in Leviticus are responding to the sins of previous generations. But in any case, they don't have those laws yet, and so they're not held accountable for them. Jochebed or Yocheved, her name probably means Yahweh is glory, which makes it the first biblical name that includes Yahweh in the name. The fancy name for that is a theophoric element. If Yahweh is included in the name or a divine name is included, that's a theophoric name, and this is the first one. Notice Yocheved is obviously named before her son Moses is born. She's already an adult by that time. So this provides additional support for the suggestion that the family of Abraham already knew the name Yahweh before Moses encountered God at Mount Sinai. So that's an interesting thing to notice here. If we continue going down through the genealogy, we had this grammatical break in verse 20 with now Amram took Yocheved, his aunt, and then we have a resumption of the pattern, the sons of Izhar, the sons of Uzziel, And then in verse 23, we have another break. Now Aaron took Elisheba, daughter of Amminadab. This is another example of a break in pattern that draws our focus to a particular descendant of Levi and a particular descendant of Amram, namely Aaron. Now, this might come as a surprise because Moses is obviously the main character of the book of Exodus. He gets so much of the focus. So we might expect Moses to be the one to get the most attention in the genealogy, but he doesn't. He's named as the son of Amram and Yocheved in verse 20, but then we never even get any sons of Moses. Why would Moses, the main guy in this book, not have his descendants named? Well, I think it's significant to notice that Moses' role, unlike Aaron's, is not dynastic. He does not pass on leadership to his sons. And instead, he passes it on to Joshua, who's not even his relative, his close relative. Aaron, on the other hand, is when he later becomes high priest, is supposed to pass on the priesthood to his oldest sons. And so the priesthood gets passed from generation to generation. So it's actually crucially important that we pay attention to and trace the descendants of Aaron. Returning to Moses just for a moment, it's really interesting if you read ahead to Judges chapter 18, verse 30. We get this shocking moment of revelation in which Moses' own grandson is leading the Danites, the people of Dan, in idolatry. So not only do we not have a dynasty with Moses, but we have some significant problems in Moses' lineage. And this genealogy just leaves off his descendants altogether. It's important that Moses appears here because it tells us his pedigree. It tells us he is a Levite and he is the brother of Aaron. He's rightfully a member by birth of the nation of Israel. But he does not start a new chain of command. This is not like the Davidic dynasty where his descendants will continue to have a leadership role. Next week, we're going to take a closer look at verse 25, the final member of the longest chain of names in this genealogy, to explore why that name gets a special focus. But for now, I hope you're convinced that slowing down and paying attention to how a genealogy is structured and even drawing it out so that you can see where the emphasis is can help you discover what the author wants to convey in terms of themes of the entire book. So get out there and pick your favorite genealogy and get to work. It's really quite fascinating to see how they function. Have a great week.